Hey guys, as you can tell by my terrible handwriting, I'm going to be showing you how to blend. I'm going to be using this picture that I made a few months ago, so I'm not going to be showing you how to make that picture from scratch, but I will be showing you the techniques that I use to blend all the colors together. The blending techniques that I will be mentioning in this video are really simple and really anybody could do it, but if you really want to be good at it, you do need some practice. So this video is really not a quick, easy way to improve your drawings, but the purpose of this video is just to expose to you what kind of blending tools there are so that you can use them to your advantage in your art style or in the art style that you are trying to achieve. So first, let me revert this picture back to its base colors and line art. Alright, so before I get to the blending techniques, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. So when you're using the brushes, make sure you're using the brush with the pen pressure. You want to make sure that the brush you're using does this whenever you do the pen pressure, right? So it changes opacity whenever you change the pressure, just something like that. You make sure you're not using the one that looks like that. So make sure you're not using this. Make sure you're using the one that changes opacity, which is like that. Okay, so just get that out of the way. All right, so the first blending technique that I want to show you is the one using the smudge tool or blend tool. They're called differently in different versions of Photoshop, but since I'm using Photoshop CS4, it's called the smudge tool, which is the one over here. Right, so let me just try to get two random colors first so that I can demonstrate to you how it works. Just two random colors right there. And then when you're using the smudge tool, you want to go to the brush settings and make sure that the scattering is on, because that part is really important. And sometimes you want to make sure that the lock is on so that whenever you change the brush, it doesn't turn off automatically. And then you also want to make sure that the strength is what you want. So you can adjust it however you want, but I usually just leave it at 5 because I'm more used to it. So once you've got the scattering on and the strength adjusted, now you can just choose the smudge tool and just smudge that part and it just blends automatically. So let's try to apply that to the face. So I've got the two layers right here, so the layer for the face and the layer for the hair. So I'm going to just demonstrate it to you for the face. So I'm just going to choose a hard brush and choose a darker color to mark the shadows on the face. So I'm just going to choose something random and then just go over the dark parts, the ones that you would usually see on the face. So I'm just going to do it on the eyes and the under eyes and the nose, and then maybe a little bit under the mouth over here, and maybe under the neck, something like that. So as you can see right now, it looks like a skeleton, but that's what we want for now. And maybe we can do stuff on here as well, on the arms, just like that. Okay, and maybe under here, and maybe a little bit under here as well, so that the face doesn't look too flat. Alright, so we got our skeleton right here. Now we want to go to the smudge tool or blend tool, and I usually use the airbrush to blend things in because it blends better that way. And then what you want to do is just to blend all of that, and as you can see, it's looking much better already. It's blending faster and much better. You can adjust the size if you want to get bigger areas, things like that. And of course, over here and over here. Okay. And well, this one doesn't really blend that well, so we can just fix that. Something like that. If you don't like how it's blending, you can just restart it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, so I'm just going to do exactly that. And then just blend it. And that looks better. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so this is just kind of the basic face blending part. And of course, it doesn't really look done yet, and it's not meant to be the final step to blending, but it's just sort of a tool that you can use like that. And I mean, it kind of does look muddy right now, but if you go to image adjustments and brightness and contrast, if you just increase the contrast a little bit, it looks like skin color already, and it's a great base to start with, right? So that's the blending tool, or smudge tool, however you have in your Photoshop version. And again, this is really not the final step to blending or anything. So usually I would try to make things even darker and, you know, just try to keep hard edges in there still. So just kind of choose a darker color and just put some colors in there so that it won't look too blended. No, something like that. And it does take time to kind of understand how this works, but if you keep practicing, you will understand how it will work eventually. Like that. Alright, so the next blending technique that I want to show you is just the airbrush. So it's just literally the airbrush without anything, so just the airbrush. And really it's really straightforward. So let's say you want to put pink in this two colors right here, and if you use the airbrush, the pink instantly blends with whatever you're trying to put it on. So this is really good, especially if you're wanting to use blush on the face. So if we go back to the face layer, and maybe I'll use a dark pink for the blush, and if I just do that, it instantly blends with whatever I'm trying to work with. And in terms of blush, I like to use the multiply blending mode so that it blends much better, just like that. And maybe on the nose as well, and maybe on the arms over here, like that. Just on the arms. And you know, just something like that. And sometimes I use it to accentuate the face shape. So if I choose a brown color like that, I could use multiply and just airbrush this part over here, just like that. And it instantly does things with the colors that is under it. And this is still in multiply mode, so if you're using the multiply mode, it just instantly blends things together, because the multiply mode basically makes things darker relative to what you're applying it onto. So it's not literally just two colors on top of each other, it's actually some math going on within Photoshop, which luckily you don't have to do anything with that. So there you go, that's the airbrush tool. Alright, so remember, so just as a recap, we had the smudge tool and we have the airbrush, and both are really straightforward. And the next one is also very straightforward because it's just manual blending. So let me just get these colors again. So I'll just show you what I mean by manual blending. So these two colors over here. Oops, that was still in multiply. I'm gonna have to change it to normal first. And these two colors right here. And then if you just want to blend them together without any tools, you can. So first, make sure that you're using the brush that changes opacity when you change the pressure. And what you want to do is just to use the eyedrop tool and then take a color within the color that you want to blend with, and then just take that color and just, you know, just do that lightly. Just blend it lightly and pick the other color and pick the color in between it and another color in between it, and just, you know, just keep doing it. And see, the good thing about this is that the result is not going to be blended too much. So as you can see, you can still see the hard edges that was resulting from the brush itself. And you can actually change the hardness of the brush so that you can adjust the hardness of that thing you're blending, just like that. And it's a quick, easy way to do. Usually I use this whenever I do hair, because when you're doing hair, you want to make sure that not all of it is blended, because you want to make sure that the strands are still visible. So let me just show you how that works. So let's say I want to go back to the hair, and I'm just going to show you real quick how I do hair. So, well, first I usually use a brush for hair. So I got this brush over here a very long time ago. I'm not sure where I got it, but if I do get it, I will probably post a link to it. But this is the brush that I use for hair, and it's really good because the strands are going to be visible really easily. Like in one stroke you can have, you know, maybe like 10 strands all together, so it just makes the process much faster. So let me just show you how I blend the hair together. So here the hair is brown, so for the dark part I'm just going to choose a darker brown color and just construct the hair. So I'm just going to do that, something like this. Okay, and then since there are still hard edges there, I'm just going to pick some colors in between it and just blend them together. And it's really good to be using this brush again, because while you're doing it, the strands are still visible, so it's not like it's a huge clump of hair. It's actually some strands, and you can see those strands being together, kind of like that. And if you take off the line art, you can see that it's hair already. It's a good hair, you know, just things like that. And if you make it darker, you can accentuate the partings of the hair. And again, this does take a lot of practice. The first time I did this, I was not successful at it, but you guys will probably be more successful than I did. And you know, if you just keep doing it, you'll get used to it, and you'll be able to do it faster and faster. You know, just something like that. And if you keep blending, the strands is still visible because you're not blending it too much. You're just blending it enough. And you know, just keep doing it to the whole hair. Obviously, I'm not going to do that in this one video, but maybe next time if I want to make a hair tutorial. But as for now, this is kind of the basic idea on how I do hair. Just blend it manually. Okay, I just kind of wanna okay, and this is about as much as I want to do here today, but that's just kind of the basic idea. You're just choosing a color in between, and because of that, you can blend easily. And just a tip for that, I could do that quickly because I changed the hotkeys for the color picker tool and the brush tool. So I think if you're using a default, the color picker tool or eyedropper tool is I, but I changed it to Q, and then the brush is usually B, but then I changed it to S. So when I want to blend manually, I can just, you know, just switch from Q to S, Q to S, Q to S, Q to S, and it's just really quick for me. And if you want to do that, you can do that just to make things go faster. Alright, so well, that's how to blend manually. And again, I'll probably give you the link to this hairbrush over here if I could find it. I'll probably find it later. But yeah, that's another blending technique that you can use. And let's see what other thing we can talk about. Oh yeah, I don't know if you know, but there's a thing called the Smudge Blur, and it's kind of works like the Gaussian Blur, if you know what that is, but it doesn't blur too much. So like, let's say I want to go to the hair, and if you go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur, everything is just blended too much. So I'm gonna try to zoom in, and you can tell that everything is just blurred too much over here. So like, there's no hard edges. But if you go to filter, blur, and smart blur, it's actually not blended a lot. So if you just reduce the radius and threshold, you can see that some parts of it is blended, but not all of them is blended, so that you still have some hard edges left. And it's really, really good actually. When I first found out about this, it literally changed my life, because it's really a fast and easy way to blur things out. So if I do it on the face, well, there's not a lot of colors on the face right now, so you probably won't see the change. But you know, if you're just starting out with blending, this is a really, really good way to improve. Okay, just like that. And as you can see, everything looks much more blended, but at the same time, the hard edges are still there, you know, still there. I used Smart Blur a lot when I first found out about it, but now that I'm kind of used to blending, I almost never use Smart Blur anymore. But if you're just starting out, this is a really good way to improve on what you already have. And I mentioned Gaussian Blur too in the beginning. So Gaussian Blur is actually very, very useful too, because it blends stuff very, very strongly. So I usually use it whenever I want to do the neck. So if I go to the skin layer and do a lasso tool on from the chin and just do something like that, it's just going to blend this part, but then on the chin it's going to be a hard edge. So let me just get that out of the way. So if I go to Gaussian Blur right now and just increase the how much I want it to blur, you can see that on this part it's still very hard, but then on the bottom it's really, really blended. And it's a great tool, and sometimes I use it whenever I want to blend the cheeks, because I don't know, I find it hard to blend that part, but you know, you can do that as well. So just go to Gaussian Blur and just blend that part, and as you can see right now, it's much more blended than before. I mean, I don't think you can see it, but you know, if you have more colors, you can definitely see how much it's going to blend. And just like that. And that's, you know, just kind of like the basics on blurring. So if I go back to the kind of finished version of this, so remember when I mentioned about manual blurring? I think that's the one that I use the most, because you have the most control over it, and as you can see on here, it also leaves you the hard edges so that your picture won't look too blurred. So even here, I can still do some blending. Just pick a color in between and just blend those colors together. And you know, just things like that. And if you just keep going, eventually you'll be used to these kinds of techniques, and you can use it without even thinking about it. You know, just something like that. And you can actually also use the burn tool. So if you go to here, this is called the burn tool, and it essentially makes things darker. So you'd usually want to choose the airbrush so that it will blend automatically. So if I do a burn tool under the nose, let's say, it makes it darker, but at the same time it blends along with it. So I don't know if you can see, but if you just try it out in your own Photoshop on your own image, you'll be able to see. And you can also use the dodge tool. So the dodge tool makes things brighter, so you know, I can do it on the nose or on the eyes, and it instantly blends for you. But make sure that you're using the airbrush so that it could blend for you very quickly. I also want to mention that you don't necessarily have to blend everything that you see. For example, if you have the nose over here, You do want to keep this edge over here hard because you want to show the shape of the nose. If you blend that out, it's just going to delete the structure of the nose like that, which is not very good. So you want to keep certain edges hard but certain edges soft. Another example would be the chin, right? You don't want the chin to be blurred out too much. You know, sometimes you want to blur it out, but you really don't want it to blur that much. And of course for the eyes, for the lines, you don't want to blur that much either. But if you're dealing with, you know, blushes, of course you want to blur that. And again, it does require some amount of practice in order to be able to use these effectively. You know, I'll just probably show you what I did before I knew anything about blending. So if you go to my DeviantArt page, this is an image of Taylor Swift that I did, and really at this time I really didn't know anything about blurring, so as you can see it just looks like a bunch of lines just being stacked on top of each other because I really did not know anything about pen pressure back then. So every time I went to change the opacity of something, I literally just change the opacity every time I do a brush stroke, and that's why it takes me so long to do anything. And I just did that, you know, for over 2 or 3 years because I really did not know anything about blending. But the first blending tool that I knew was the Smart Blur, and it really did change my life. So this picture of Marceline I did, I think about almost a year ago, I think. This was the day I discovered Smart Blur, and as you can see, I mean, most of the stuff are blended. They're not too blended, but you know, it's more blended than I had it before. So that was a good day for me. And I remember this picture too because it took me 3 days just to do this. So I was proud of the face back then because it's much more blended now. And for sure, you really don't want to blend everything. As you can see here, I even blended the armpit, like the creases. Like, you really don't want to blend that in. And basically, the arm is just really bad looking. Not that I look at it, because everything is just blended. There are no hard edges at all because I was just too obsessed with Smart Blur. Then I just Smart Blurred everything like 1,000 times. So don't make the same mistake as I did. And then on this one, again, it took me 3 days just to do the blending on the face, and I was proud of it, you know, to be honest. So I was okay with this. And you know, the more pictures that you do, the better that you'll get. And I still have a long way to go before I can, you know, call myself an expert, but I'll probably never call myself an expert because, you know, you can always improve no matter where you are. So these are what I have for you today, and these are the blending tools that I use almost every single time that I do anything in digital painting. So I really do hope that you find this useful because I feel really productive right now, so I feel really great about myself. So I hope you had fun because I had fun making this, and I'll probably see you soon.